my prediction of a global energy crisis is coming true. So what comes next? Well, energy prices, they're skyrocketing. Energy shortages, they're happening all around the world right now. Now, just over a year ago, I made a video predicting that this was going to happen, and unfortunately, it is happening right now, and it's happening fast. So in this video, I'm gonna break down what is causing this and how I was able to predict this over a year ago, how big of an impact this is going to have on the world, and specifically for you, no matter where you live. It's coming for you, all right? Now, I wanna explain what we have to watch, what we have to look forward to, and of course, what you need to know to navigate this correctly, and what I expect to happen from here. So let's go. All right, now real quick, before I jump into the energy that's skyrocketing prices and having shortages all across the world, like I said, it's happening because of policy, and this is part of this whole Great Reset agenda. By 2030, you'll notice some of these dates popping up in here. Now, if you wanna know how to navigate this, how to survive, how to thrive this, come hang out with me and about 15 of the experts in the world, where we're gonna talk about how to build, grow, and protect your wealth, how to protect your assets, and even your health and your freedom, because it's time to look at those as assets. So if you want to come join me, there is a link down below, but let's just go ahead and look at the power for right now. Okay, now like I said in the intro as I started out, about a year ago, I made this video right here. You might have remembered it. It says, warning, it's coming. And basically the title said, warning, what happened in California is coming for the rest of the world. And this was made a little over a year ago. It's got almost 1 million views on that video. And like I said, I was breaking down what happened in California, which was having rolling blackouts. And I broke down why there was having rolling blackouts there in California, why it would come for the rest of the country, and why it would come for the rest of the world, coming for the world. And I made the case in that video, I'll link to it right up here, editor, go ahead and put that up there. I made the case that the reason why it was happening in California and why I knew it was coming for the rest of the world is because of policy. It's policies that are put into place. Now, I talk about finance on this channel. I like to say that I'm trying to change the way you think about money. And sometimes when I dip into politics, people don't like that. I have comments that say, stay in your lane, stay in finance. But if you don't understand politics, you can't understand finance. You have to understand both. And the reason why this is happening is because of policy, because of politics. And if you play this correctly, it could make you a lot of money. Finance could also cost you a lot of money. It could be disastrous if you get that wrong. So let's go ahead and break this down. So like I said, it's policies that are causing this. It's policies that are forcing the switch. So what's happening? So just like in California a year ago, what's happening in the rest of the world is that we're seeing policies that are forcing governments, state governments, global governments, nations, to switch from fossil fuels to renewables, right? So that's what happened in California. They shut down their coal power plants, they shut down their natural gas power plants, they shut down 2 out of their 3 nuclear power plants in the, in the plan to switch all that to renewable energy. But guess what? They didn't replace it with renewable energy, and they shut down what they did have, and guess what happened? They ended up with shortages. It wasn't really hard to see that. And we are starting to see the exact same thing happening in the rest of the world. Now, if you haven't seen the headlines of energy outages from Asia to Japan to South America, all across Europe, then I don't know where you've been paying attention to. But we see that the EU leaders, they met with the UN last week, and they're basically doubling down. What we're doing to restrict things haven't been enough, they say, and we need to go even further. The UK PM, good old Boris, he said that it's a turning point right now for the world. It's the moment we have to grow up, he says. And so he says that this is a turning point right now. Well, let's take a look at this turning point right now. He assures us, check this out, this is kind of ironic, we'll talk about this. He also assured his country, the UK, will lead by example. That's pretty interesting. Let's see what example the UK is setting for us. He says that the UK will lead by example, keeping the environment, the global agenda, and serving as a launch pad for a global green industrial revolution. All right, so that's why it's coming for the world. That's their plan. So it's going to lead by example. Let's take a look at the example. Now, I do want to just tell you real quickly that in this video, I'm not going to be breaking down the science of climate change. I'm not going to talk about carbon emissions. I'm not going to talk about is it good, is it bad. I'm not talking about any of that. All I'm doing is we're going to look at the policies, because it's the policies that are driving this, all right? So I just want to make that clear. Now, let's go ahead and keep going here. Now, the statements that he made, like I said, are kind of ironic because he wants it to be the example for the rest of the world. Now, while most of the world is facing severe crisis, it does seem that the UK is actually leading the way in the crisis. They're the ones that are having the hardest time with it. So that's why it's ironic that he says that they want to lead the way, because they certainly are leading the way in the crisis. We know that natural gas prices, the price of natural gas is up over 800%. Now, we talk about these policies and how they affect the poor the most, because when you can't afford your energy, you got problems. When you can't afford to heat your house, cook your food, etc. Natural gas prices are up 800%. Electricity prices are up about 300%. Leading the way. This is to be the example of the world. Remember that. That's his words, not mine. We also have in the UK a massive lack of fertilizer. And because of the gas shortages, we can't produce the fertilizer. And because we can't produce the fertilizer, we don't get CO2. Now, I'm not talking about emissions of CO2. I'm talking about CO2 that's needed to used with frozen foods. It goes in their foods, and there's massive shortages in regards to that as well. Just to kind of give you a visual on how big this problem is, we can see that what was happening in the UK, they shut down all their own production of energy, kind of like what California did, in the hopes of importing energy from France. So France has the cheapest energy in the EU. Why? Well, let's talk about that a little bit later. Why does France have the cheapest energy when Germany next door has the most expensive? We'll talk about that. But anyway, what the UK did, just like California, they shut their production down in the hopes of borrowing from France. But guess what? When the French electricity couldn't come, just like in California, Nevada, Arizona, guess what? When California needs it, so does Arizona, Nevada. So there's no extra. Same thing happened here. They couldn't get it. Also, other factors contributed to the shortage and spike, including low wind speeds. So they shut down all their gas, what we'd call reliable energy, for what we might call renewable, or what I might call unreliable energy. And so guess what? The wind speeds weren't working. And guess what happens when it doesn't blow? You don't get any electricity. So we couldn't import it. The wind speeds were down. Because we decommissioned the nuclear power plants, we couldn't get any, and then they had planned closures for maintenance of the gas platform. So this is all policy driven. And guess what happened? You see the price go up. Natural gas prices have completely soared from right here all the way up. I mean, that's just insane. And that's for the natural gas prices. We can see the same thing happening with electricity prices, have tripled since last August, and we can see that price is going up like crazy. Now, again, this is policy, so you have to pay attention to the politics. The policy is to shut it down. Over the last decade, since about 2010, it's been very aggressive. We've seen the UK and the EU shutting down their electricity, shutting down their energy plants. Like I said, in the hopes of replacing it, but it hasn't happened. You would think they might wait until they could replace it before they shut it down. That's not the way politicians work, though. So they've shut down hundreds of coal plants. And in the UK, remember Boris says the UK is the example to lead off of. The UK only has 2 remaining coal plants going. Never mind, China and India have completely blown up their coal plants. Hundreds and hundreds of them are being built, but the UK shut them down. They have 2 left. Spain has shut down half. As a matter of fact, the goal of the EU, their goal is to shut down 72% in the next 4 years. So how's that going to work out? And to be 100% done, shut down by 2031. Remember the Agenda 2030. You'll notice that date keeps popping up. Now, it's at the same time, the EU has spent trillions of dollars subsidizing the renewables, or like I said, what we might call unreliables. Now in this sheet, this shows the global coal power. Now this chart that we have right here shows the coal plants either expanding, being built more, or shutting down. Now you can see one line has basically gone parabolic right here. Any guess which country that might be? China. Yeah, you're right, China. So China has completely exploded. The other 2 lines you can see right here, this one and you can see this one are barely going up. Those are both in Asia as well. And then you can see India. India's barely gone up. India, Asia, and then of course China has completely skyrocketed. Meanwhile, the US and the EU and everywhere else has shut down their their reliable, cheap sources of energy. Again, this is done on policy. Now we can see, I'm not going to show you that one, we already looked at that. So 100% shut down by the year 2031. And we can see this is all being taken from this analysis of the impact of the new round of pollution controls. Europe's coal-fired power plants, rough times ahead for them, all right? This is policy, but let's go ahead and keep digging so you can see what's exactly happening. So remember, renewables, wind and solar, I like to better call them unreliables because guess what? The sun's not always up. The wind doesn't always blow. Also, we have hydroelectric power, which is from dams, from rivers, and let's take a look at that. So like I said, first off, the renewables, it hasn't replaced what's lost. Now, I shouldn't say it was lost. I should say what has been shut down on purpose, just like what happened in California. And this is what's happening all over the world now. In the summer, because we shut down the reliable energy with coal and natural gas and nuclear, because we shut that down and we were running wind and solar, the unreliables, well, throughout the summer in Europe, it had very low wind. As a matter of fact, it had some of the lowest wind it's had in years and actually in decades. And because of that, guess what? There's massive shortage of electricity because of that. Throughout Asia and through South America and even throughout California, we had droughts this year. Remember, some seasons it rains more than others. And because of the droughts, the hydropower didn't produce enough of power. Now we can see this in the news headlines. Again, if you're paying attention, this is CNBC. They talk about how low wind speeds hurt profits at two of Europe's major energy firms. Oh, that pesky wind. Why can't it just blow whenever we want it to, right? Like, why does it blow more than others sometimes? How come we can't predict it or make it blow when we want? Seems kind of funny when you say it like that. Of course, the same with the rain. Some years it rains more than others. And guess what happens when it doesn't rain very much? Well, the West risks blackouts. Oh, sorry, no electricity for you. No electricity for your refrigerator to keep your food cold. Because we have drought and it reduced the hydroelectric power. Again, what we might call those unreliables. Now, in Japan, they've done the same thing. They've been dependent on natural gas because they shut down all their nuclear reactors after Fukushima. And so they're also dependent on now natural gas, and they're being forced to import. So this is happening all over the world. And because each country, just like California did, they didn't want to produce their own power because that would be against their mandates for clean energy. They would just get it from their neighboring states. Well, that's the same thing that's happening across the world. Japan, Asia, all through Europe, they're all depending on someone else to provide them power, but when they can't get it, it causes massive problems. Now, like I said, the reason why I was able to predict this a year ago and I'm able to continue to predict it is because it's about the policies. But the policies don't, politicians don't learn, right? They don't make it better because there's no feedback loop. As a business owner or as a head of my household, I have to live in the real world. And if I do things in my business that don't work, I have to stop doing them. Otherwise, I would go bankrupt. I have to lay off all the people that work for me, and things would be disastrous for me personally. But as a government politician, there's no accountability. There's no feedback loop. So whatever doesn't work, let's just keep doing it because it makes sense, I guess. I don't know. But the policies make it worse. So if we didn't already have enough problems because we've shut down the production of it, and supply and demand, right? So when you shut down the supply, but guess what? The demand's still there because of course we still need air conditioners and we need heaters in the winter and we have to keep our food cold. We have to drive our cars. So the demand stays, but we shut the supply down. What do you think happens? Oh yeah, it pushes the prices up, right? What else can we do to make the prices go high? Well, if you're a politician, that's probably the question you're asking. So in Europe, they have something called cap and trade. And basically what cap and trade was another smart idea by the politicians to say, well, here's what we'll do. If we put massive taxes on something, people will use it less, right? Kind of like in the United States, they've put massive taxes on cigarettes and in the hopes that people would smoke less. but it didn't. People just pay more for cigarettes. And that's exactly what the cap and trade did. And so they say, you can continue to emit as much emissions as you want, but now you have to buy these carbon credits. And you have to buy these carbon credits from us, and I don't know where we got them from, but we'll sell them to you. And under the program, manufacturers and power suppliers must, like I said, buy carbon credits. Sounds okay, I would guess in theory, although we've seen it not work over and over, but keep trying, right? The price of the credits, guess what? Spiked this year, right? Of course, supply and demand. So demand increased, and then the regulators tightened up the supply, which does what? Oh yeah, it pushes the prices up even more. And so guess what happens when the energy companies have to pay way more to produce their energy? Yeah, they pass it on to you and I as the consumers, but it's actually even worse than that. Let me explain to you how bad it gets. We can see here, understanding the emission system. So it's a little bit of a lame duck in climate action. Remember, it's a lame duck, it's not working. It's not succeeding in triggering any move away from the use of fossil fuels. It's not working. Just like it didn't stop smoking either. It didn't work. Price is rising to over 50 euros per ton. So all it's done is just rose the prices on the producers, which again goes back to you and I as the consumers. But as they've continued to cut the supply and increase the price, guess what happens? Not only does it push the price to us, it also puts enormous strain on the producers themselves. We can see that, again, natural gas is in short supply all over Europe. Now, natural gas is pretty important, right? We need it to heat our homes, and they're saying that in the winter, people could be freezing, maybe freezing to death, because they don't have the gas to heat their homes, probably the gas to cook with, and all those other things. And in a time when you think we would need it really bad, it's interesting that the Netherlands shut down Europe's biggest gas field. As a matter of fact, about 20% of all the natural gas came from this. So at a time when Europe is having massive shortages, they shut down 20% of the supply. Sounds pretty interesting. And as a matter of fact, the UK, remember the UK is leading the charge on this. The UK has massive shortages, and remember Germany has the highest electricity, not just the highest, multiple times highest electricity prices in the whole EU. So the UK and Germany are standouts on being horrible energy policy. They've banned hydraulic fracking. So they basically banned the ability to get all that natural gas out of the ground. Now, I'm not gonna get into the science of it. Is it good, is it bad? That's for another video. But the point is that we have natural gas in the ground. We could get it out. People wouldn't freeze to death this year. Sounds pretty good, but they have banned it. They have massive gas shale resources, and they're completely going to waste. And even more than that, so where does all the natural gas from Europe come from? Because we still need it, right? I mean, we still got to heat the houses, and we still got to cook the food and all those things. So where does it come from? Oh, well, it's all now in the fate of Russia. So now Russia is supplying all of Europe. And of course, if you pay attention to the news at all, Russia may not be the best actor to be relying on. We can see that European gas surge is more than 10% as Russia keeps a grip on the supply. So now Russia controls all the supply. That's on Bloomberg. We can see on CNBC, Russia is pumping a lot less natural gas to Europe all of a sudden. Are they doing that on purpose? Are they trying to squeeze them? Well, it says that some of the supply from Russia has slowed in recent weeks. They think that maybe Russia might be doing this on purpose because they're trying to get Germany to open up a pipeline with them so they could send their natural gas down to Germany, which of course sounds like a pretty good idea because they could take it to LNG plants and freeze it and load it in trucks. They could drive it, and that would be worse for the environment, you would think, or it could just free flow down a pipeline, which would take no trucks and would think it would be better on the environment. But Germany is for some reason dragging their feet on this, and so they're saying that maybe this Nord Stream 2 pipeline, they really want to get that open and they're trying to squeeze it. We don't know the answer, but probably only Putin knows that. But the fact is that why is Europe dependent on Russia for its natural gas when they have it all themselves? They have massive resources that they could get on their own, but oh yeah, it's policy that they're trying to lead the world with. Now, on top of that, the more and more supply, remember supply and demand, the supply has been shut down, the demand is still there, but we continue to lose more and more supply. they're shutting it down, but then it's triggering like this dominoes going down. We've seen several UK, remember UK's leading the charge here, old Boris says that he should be the example of the world. Several UK providers have collapsed in the last few weeks. We can see this, here's an article in The Guardian. Most UK small energy suppliers could be left to collapse this winter. So now the producers can't even produce it anymore. They're going out of business because their costs went sky high with the carbon credits, the cap and trade that the policy makers have put in place. And they can't get any of the supplies at the same time. We're also seeing that German power suppliers are in danger of also going insolvent. Remember, the UK and Germany, they're the examples of what not to do in Europe. They're in danger of going insolvent. Germany's electricity providers were already the highest in Europe, and they've already doubled. Going back to the UK here, we see energy firms have collapsed, and it hits 1.5 million customers. So while the politicians want to play these games for these policies because the world will be 1.5 degrees higher in 20 years, which apparently we can't survive with that, even though in Arizona it's 125 degrees. I think we could handle an extra degree or two. 1.5 million customers are at risk right now. And that's a pretty big problem in my opinion. Now, we can see in Germany, this is interesting, in Germany, since 2010, right here, energy prices have doubled since 2010. Now, why since 2010? What's important about since 2010? Well, in 2010 is when they started shutting down all their cheap energy. They started shutting down all their nuclear reactors. As a matter of fact, they started decommissioning them all left and right. And so now we can see that German power markets are set for the highest winter prices in the last 20 years. Now, this isn't just because of inflation. This isn't just because they printed trillions of dollars. They're literally doing this on purpose. Do you get my point here? And they have this heavy reliance on renewables. So they've spent trillions of dollars on renewables or unreliables that aren't working, and they've shut down all the nuclear reactors. Now, why did I say France had the cheapest power? Well, because France has the highest amount of nuclear reactors. Germany has the lowest, which has the most expensive. You starting to understand these policies here? All right, now, where does this all go? What's going to happen? Well, Andrew Large, he's a former UK energy advisor. He's warning that we could end up seeing another what's called a 3-day work week, which sounds pretty good. I guess I'd like to work 3 days a week. But really what happened is he's saying that there could be an energy shortage this winter, and it could prompt another 3-day work week, which is actually not a good thing. That's in reference to the coal and rail worker strike back in the 1970s, where basically the governments were forced to ration energy. And because they were forced to ration energy, then people couldn't work because the businesses couldn't open, which is exactly what we're seeing happen in China right now, today, at the time as I'm recording this video. Factories are starting to shut down and ration the amount of energy they can use because there's not enough energy to use. And so he's saying that we could potentially see the same thing happen again. And of course, that was a really big deal. Mounting fears of a 1970s style 3-day work week. Manufacturing leaders fear an industrial collapse. Now, supply chains are already stretched super thin. As a matter of fact, it's very difficult to pretty much get any product out there. Supply chains are already collapsing. And now they're talking about an industrial collapse that's self-imposed because of policy. It's potentially catastrophic, they say. Now, if you want to go learn more about this, I'm not going to dig in super deep. You can go to Wikipedia and learn about the 70s energy crisis. It occurred when the Western world, particularly the US, Canada, Western Europe, Australia, New Zealand, faced substantial petroleum shortages, real and perceived. So they had energy shortages, real and perceived. See what I'm saying? We got the energy. What's happening to it? Why aren't we getting it all of a sudden? You're starting to get the picture. Now, what I want to warn you about is expect contagion, all right? Expect higher energy prices. because they're coming. I predicted it a year ago because it's policy, and I'm predicting it now because it's policy. Until something in their policy changes, so either one, they lift the regulations and they allow people to get the energy out of the ground and allow the market to start moving freely again, either that or they switch energy sources, which is probably what I'm leaning towards. I believe nuclear is going to have to be approved if they want to continue these zero carbon mandates and have enough energy to go around. So one of those two things has to happen. I'm long uranium right now. It's a big play. I think one of those two things happen. So expect higher energy prices in the future, and it could be a lot higher. Could be 5 times higher, could be 8 times higher, could be 10 times. I've been saying that I think that in the United States, gas will probably be over $10 a gallon by the time Biden's out of office. So expect that. Also, plan for this. You might want to plan to have energy outages at your house, depending on where you're at in the world. You might want to have solar on your roof, your own battery system, and you probably want to have a generator at your house. You need to plan for this because the shortages are coming. Again, it's policy. And like I've been saying, this is part of the Great Reset. Remember, their goal is by 2030, which of course by 2030, you'll own nothing and be happy. So you want to protect your wealth. You want to protect your assets. You need to make sure that you're going to have enough energy through this. If you want more tips on how to build, grow, protect your wealth, how to protect your assets, how to protect your freedom, come hang out with me in Miami here coming up soon. There's a link down below where you can find out more about that event, Surviving the Great Reset. About 15 of the best speakers in the world telling you what they think is going to happen over the next couple of years and what you should be doing to survive. Now, that's what I got on this video. This is coming. It's coming fast. It's actually happening right now. We're witnessing it. Let me know, are you seeing this? And if so, what do you think is going to happen over the next couple of years? Do you think they'll continue, or do you think they'll smarten up and reverse their policies? I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment and let me know what you think about that. Of course, as always, give me a thumbs up on this video if you like it, even though it's a bad topic. If you don't like the video, even though I'm working hard, give me a thumbs down, that's okay. But at least leave me a comment and let me know why. And that's what I got for you today. All right, to your success. I'm out.